Hello and welcome to Kingdom Inspired Kids podcast, where I am your host, Calvette Boyd, and I'm also the founder of Kingdom Inspired Kids podcast, where parents talk. Listen, if you have not gone back and looked at any of my podcasts, please make sure you go back and look at the previous podcast. I was very transparent about raising children, well, taking our children on vacation, taking our kids swimming, taking our kids to different parties and graduations and those kind of things. And then my most recent one, I talked a lot about the challenges of taking your children with you when you're going to visit your family and friends for different events that your family may be having. Listen, raising kids with ADHD and ADD is a challenge, and doing it alone takes a special kind of strength. So I can just tell you, between me and God, we're the ones that work this thing out. So this podcast is for parents who you're either single or you are married or with a significant other, and you are basically still doing the job of raising these children by yourself. There are a lot of highs and lows when you raise children that have any kind of disability. So I can tell you it is a challenge, and together we're going to take this journey. So I want to talk a little bit about me being a parent that's been in the trenches. Listen, when anything is going on at school with my children, or anything is going on at work with my children, they raise their hand and they're the ones that are reaching out to me. So even, a lot of times parents are like, when is this ever going to stop? When do I ever get a break? I've been dealing with this for a long time. It is not time for the break yet. We have to get our children to the place where they can handle things on their own. And if they can't, we have to be their advocate. So that's what I mean by being in the trenches. Or if your children are at school and the school is calling you constantly, then that's when the parent is the advocate. You have to advocate for your children because not everybody understands what they're going through. Today, I want to share a few, I want to be transparent and share some stories with you. So I can tell you that, when you feel like you're all alone and you can't catch a break sometimes because you're constantly going and you're maneuvering and you're moving through and you're trying to take care of the kids and you're trying to take care of your job and your home and your spouse or your parents or whoever it may be that you're taking care of, it can be somewhat overwhelming. So what I want you to do is stop and take a breath. That's what I have to do, guys. I have to stop and breathe. I used to take one of my children to counseling, and I remember they did these breathing exercises, where you take your hand and you kind of do like this and you breathe. I think you count to 10 and you breathe, you hold it. And then as you go through your fingers, then you let it out. Sometimes as parents, we just need to take a deep breath and breathe because we're going through so many different things when we're trying to parent our children. Let me give you an example of something else that happened. I had a couple of parents that asked me after my last episode. I think they were shocked because I don't know. Sometimes I guess I make this parenting thing look easy, but it is not easy. And I said in my last video, it is definitely not for the weak. It is not for the weak. So what I want to say is I had some parents that asked me, like, how do you navigate through? And I can tell you, like, a lot of prayer and a lot of being transparent. I remember a previous company that I worked for. I remember going to that company and it was like so many people had disabilities, and I had never been in that environment before, and it was a little bit different for me. And so I didn't necessarily know exactly how to navigate through that. But through prayer, I learned a lot about different disabilities, and I actually became a part of the disability advocacy network for that company for the South Territory. And so I learned a lot about different people, different ways of doing things. And I remember it was just such a shock to me that there were so many people that had disabilities. Listen, it happens. There are a lot of people that have different issues going on, but how do you navigate through that? So I had to learn, as a boss, I had to learn how to handle and navigate my way through having conversations and, having empathy and compassion when it came to that. So I kind of take that, through my journey as being a parent. Do I get upset? Yes. Do I yell and scream? Absolutely. Do I say some words that I shouldn't say? Yes, absolutely. This podcast is where you can be real and be open. It's not an easy job. It is not an easy job. It is so challenging sometimes. And I can just tell you that you have to look at the good in it. And you also have to know who's got your back. A lot of people have, like, you may have your family that's around that can assist and they might understand the disabilities. And so that means they can come in and they can kind of assist. But I can tell you, I have a little bit of support, but not much at all. My children don't even go and visit their other side of the family. And I told you guys in my previous podcast, like, my family doesn't understand what's going on. I've been told, spank them. If you spank your kids, if you beat their tails, they'll act different. But I talked about that in my previous podcast. You cannot spank or discipline your children and make the mental health issues go away, because it just doesn't work that way. So what I can tell you, for the parents that have asked that question, how do you navigate through, is because the more that I am on this journey, the more research that I do. I've been told that ain't nothing wrong with them kids. There is nothing wrong with those kids. It's just the way you parent them. You'll hear all kinds of things that are ugly and cruel and harsh. But what you have to know is you were created to raise these children and you will get through it. Again, is it a challenging journey? It is definitely a challenging journey. Let me share another situation with you guys. I talk about being a parent who has been in the trenches with my children. I can tell you that if there is something going on at school with my children, I've always been a parent that is involved. I'm always at the school. I try to make sure that the teachers who are good to my children, I try to make sure that I take care of them, small thank you notes, little tokens of appreciation, because I know that they have a lot on their plates that they're dealing with every day. But you, as a parent, you're always in the trenches. It's not like you're in the trenches today and you're out tomorrow. You're in the trenches every single day, because this thing is real. So it's kind of like, just get your shovel and just start digging and just keep digging through the trenches. Just keep working at it. There are some, and I want to be very transparent with this as well. There are some teachers, I said this before, that they don't really understand the children that have disabilities. And so they don't care. They're there for a paycheck. And those teachers, like, if I have teachers watching, like, if you're at church, if you're at the school, if you're at the school for the right reason, if you really care about those children, and you also know if you are there just for a paycheck. So what I would say to the parents is, parents, read the student handbook, know what you can and cannot do, know what your children can and cannot do, know how to advocate for your children based on your state, because there's a lot of different things that if you don't dig for that information, it's not just handed to you. One of the things that I do is I've tried to make sure that my children um, have counseling. So if you're a parent and you're trying to figure out what's going on with your kids, sometimes that expert advice helps the parent as well as the children feel like they're not alone. It makes them feel, you as a parent feel more empowered. It also helps you as a parent as well as the children stay grounded so that you don't feel like you're just out there by yourself just doing something. And right now we're in summertime and the struggle is even real at home because there's continuous struggles, there's continuous meltdowns. Sometimes we have moments that are full of joy, and then a lot of times we have moments that are very challenging. I can tell you, as soon as I got ready to start doing my podcast, one of my children said to me, "Oh my God, like you're about to do your podcast right now. I'm finally trying to clean my room." And I'm just shaking my head because this is an assignment for me. So it's not something that, I just pulled out of the air. So it doesn't matter what's going on and the noise that's going on around me. I have to make sure that I stay focused on what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish. Again, make sure that your children, if your children are struggling, make sure that you get them some counseling. In the Black community, again, I'll say, in our community, in the African American community, we don't necessarily believe in counseling. We think that sometimes, many of us think that nobody can tell us anything because they haven't walked in our shoes. Or why would I go and sit on a couch and let somebody listen to me and then tell me their professional opinion if they just went to school for it, but they haven't been through it? Well, I can tell you, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a doctor. But as a parent going through it, it is definitely challenging. And I can tell you that it's okay. It's okay to go and get therapy. It is okay to go and sit on somebody's sofa or get on somebody's Zoom or whatever it is, whatever platform it may be. It is okay to go and seek out counseling because sometimes that's all we need. We need someone that can help us stay grounded. And parents, listen, go get therapy because I can tell you, raising these children, sometimes you need therapy yourself and there's nothing wrong with it. Be transparent and be vulnerable and just be like, hey, I need some help. And however I need that help, and whatever I need to do to get it, that is what I plan on doing to get it. Meltdowns. Let's just talk about meltdowns. Oh my God, I got to talk about a meltdown that happened today. So it's summertime, right? And both of my children, they work. Well, one of them had a whole entire meltdown because they couldn't find their work clothes, their work uniform. When I tell you it was a meltdown, like I got woke up out of my bed. I was in a deep sleep, so it scared me. It really scared me. I got woke up out of my sleep, so I jumped up and I was like, like really, really scared and more nervous than I guess scared. Because these episodes, you don't know when they're going to happen. A lot of these children don't sleep. They don't sleep at night, so it can happen in the middle of the night. It can happen in the morning, but this was morning. So this child had to be at work, I think, at like 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock. It was 11 o'clock. And I was woken up very early because they couldn't find their uniform. Now, this is what I don't understand, parents. This part is what I don't understand. I don't wear the uniform. There's a place to put dirty clothes. There's a place to put your clean clothes. But there was a whole entire meltdown because we couldn't find our uniform to go to work. That I had nothing to do with it. But let me tell you, for over 2 hours, probably 2.5, 3 hours, I dealt with not being able to find the uniform. So this is what I said. When you get home today, make sure that you take your uniform off, put it in the washer, wash it, dry it, hang it up so you know exactly where it is. But does that always happen? No. And so I can tell you that these meltdowns happen for little bitty things. I'll give you another example of a meltdown. A lot of these children have something going on with their eating. I know that many children take medication, and the medication they need to really eat before they take their medication, but sometimes they eat, and anyway, they take their medicine and it takes their appetite. But then here's what I don't understand. You don't have an appetite, but our children, they will want us to stop at McDonald's. Now, they already took their medicine. They ate at home, or maybe they didn't eat at home or whatever, or maybe they had a breakfast bar. But they had something to eat. Then they want you to stop at McDonald's. They got no taste buds, but they want you to stop at McDonald's. That's $4, $5, $6. Then they want you, when it's time for them to go to lunch, or while they're working, or even during school time, I'll get a phone call and it's kind of like, hey, can you bring me something to eat? Oh my God, it's a closed campus. No, I can't bring you anything to eat. And then once I pick my child or children up from school, then, hey, can you stop and get something else to eat? And then when they get home, like if you've already cooked, they eat that, and then they still want something else to eat. Listen, I don't know what that is, but I can tell you that I've talked to other parents and they deal with the same thing, where it's constant. They want to constantly eat. I don't know if it's because their mind is racing and they feel like they haven't eaten. I don't know if it's because it's the thought of having something to eat. I don't know what it is, but I can tell you as a parent, it's a meltdown. Not having something to eat when they want it, it's a meltdown. I've been told, I remember one time my child told me, I'm going to go to school and tell the people that you don't feed me. The devil is a lie. You got plenty of food at home. Look at us. You can tell we all eat. So I don't even get it. But I'm just telling you, and I'm laughing about it. But when I tell you I've cried about it, I have cried so many times about it, because I'm just like, what is going on? Like, we're having a whole episode, a whole meltdown. It's a situation over something to eat. Hey, let me know in the comments if this is something that you deal with, because I can tell you it's real. It is so real. And we go through this stuff, and it's every single day. Listen, if y'all got family, if you have family members that can give you a break, take the break. Don't feel guilty as a parent because you're like, hey, my mom is going to keep the kids, they're going to be with the grandparents for the weekend. Now, you already know, if your parents are older, like mine, you already know their tolerance is totally different from what our tolerance is. Sometimes they don't want to tolerate it. So just know, if you need a break and your parents or your family members are willing to give you a break, take the break. Take the break so that you can take care of yourself. Because I can tell you, a lot of times as parents, we become sick in our bodies. We start having headaches, we get anxiety, we get depression, and all those things because we just want somebody to see us and hear us and offer us a break. So be careful with those meltdowns. Honey, listen, they will have a meltdown about anything. My kids have had meltdowns because they want to fight over who's going to be in the front seat. Seriously? And that's a meltdown? But these are the things that we deal with every single day. And if you're doing this thing alone, it can be overwhelming, and it can take you into a place of anxiety and depression. Have I been there? I've absolutely been there. That's the reason I can talk about it so openly and freely, because I can tell you there have been times, like I think it was a couple of summers ago, I asked my children's other side of the family, their dad, I said, hey, can you give me a break? Yeah, I'll let you know. Never heard anything. So I don't even get myself worked up about it, because I already know that when I ask, it's because I'm at a breaking point. I feel like I'm about to crash, I feel like I'm about to, like, I don't know, just fall, and I'm weak. And so at that moment, I'm just like, can you please give me some help? And the crazy thing is, I don't get that. So I know that I'm not the only parent that doesn't get that. And sometimes the children can't go to the other parent's house because they're embarrassed. I talked about that before. How are you embarrassed of your own flesh and blood? And if you are, what are you doing as a parent to help that child and help navigate? Because, as parents, it takes two people to have children. So it shouldn't just fall on one side, but I can just tell you, it does. A lot of times it does. And if those parents are remarried, or they're seeing someone, they have a significant other, or whatever the case may be, I think that there should be a time where you actually sit down and talk about it, so that you guys can come to a place and co-parent, so that the parent that has the children is not feeling overwhelmed. They're not feeling all that anxiety. They're not going into a depression because they're trying to figure it out. Now, if you don't have that option, maybe that other parent is deceased and you're doing this thing alone. I've seen that as well. I know some people that are widows, and that's what has happened. That other parent is deceased, and so they're having to navigate through with their children by themselves. And yes, it can be challenging. I haven't had that experience, but I see them, and I know that it has to be challenging. So what I want to say is, just make sure that as a single parent, or as a parent that has a spouse or significant other, and maybe they're working out of town, or maybe you have a significant other and they're just not present. Sometimes I said it before, it's not, this parenting thing with children that have disabilities is not for the weak. Sometimes your spouse doesn't even understand that the children have disabilities. Sometimes you may have a spouse that doesn't even believe in going to counseling. You may have a spouse or a significant other that doesn't support you the way you need to be supported. So what I would say as a parent is, if you feel like you need support and you're struggling, you pick up the phone and call somebody. You make your counseling appointment. You tell the people that are in your circle, listen, it might not be your family. Maybe your family doesn't understand, but maybe you have a close friend that understands. Maybe both of you and one of your friends, maybe you have children that both of you have children that have disabilities. Like, how is it that you can navigate through to support each other? Maybe you watch the kids for 4 hours, and then maybe that friend watches the kids for 4 hours. But whatever you need to do to reach out to say, hey, I need some help. It's okay to say that. And I think that's where we fail, the African American community. Sometimes we fail in that because we don't talk about it. It's so hush hush. Oh, I'm embarrassed. You know what? I had somebody tell me one time, I'm glad that y'all don't live in the town that I live in, because I am so embarrassed of the way that your kids behave. Guess what? I'm sorry that that's the way God created them, but it is what it is. And I'm not going to live my life not being okay because of what someone else's opinions are. Now, last podcast, I was very emotional, and I had to really get myself together, because some of these topics that I talk about are not going to be things that are just happy and make you smile. This stuff is real. That's why it's called Kingdom Inspired Kids, where parents talk, because this is a platform for you to be free to talk about what you're going through and what your children may be going through and what your children may be experiencing. Again, being a solo parent, it is not an easy job. Even when your kids don't have disabilities, it's not an easy job. You need a support system. Listen, if you don't have anyone to talk to, check your local community, see what kind of programs they have, so that you can go maybe a mom's day out, or Any of those kind of things. When I said Mom's Day Out, I actually wanted to bust out laughing because I can tell you that didn't even work for me. That did not work for me. I tried to put my kids in all kind of activities and all kind of stuff. That didn't work for me because they didn't act the way everybody else they should or people thought they should act. And so that didn't work out for me. So a lot of times you got to think about those things. And with it being summer and your children are working, you got to make sure that you're preparing for it. That's a whole nother podcast, but you got to make sure you're preparing for it because you need to think about, as a parent, what is going to cause these kids to melt down. Honey, it can be anything. It can be because they wanted some graham crackers and you have vanilla wafers. It can be a meltdown. It can be a meltdown because they were supposed to get up for school at 6:00 and you woke them up at 5:55. It can be a meltdown because you didn't stop at McDonald's. It can be a meltdown because you don't ever feed me. It can be a meltdown because they want to get on their game and play their game and they don't want to get off and they only need a certain amount of screen time. It can be anything that can cause a meltdown. So as a parent, please think about what you need. Think about getting that expert advice and that support from your family and friends, or from another parent. Think about how you advocate with your children and how you're in the trenches. And listen, think about what kind of emotional support you need. This podcast is a safe place for parents to breathe, learn, and thrive one day at a time. Listen, I am your host and founder, Calvette Boyd, Kingdom Inspired Kids podcast. Be looking out for my new book, as well as that 800 number for you to call and speak to someone when your children are acting out, so that parents can call and just say, hey, I just need to take a breath. I just need to, hey, my child is acting out. You have any kind of advice you can give me? And that 800 number that hotline will be in multiple languages so that you can make sure that you can speak to someone that speaks and communicates in your language. You also, guys, please like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends about the podcast. If you have someone that's interested in coming on and talking, please let me know. You guys can reach me by email. You can call me on the 800 number. I appreciate your love and support. And listen, parents, you are not alone. Solo and strong is what we want to call it. You are not alone. You got this. I'll see you guys soon.